Okay, I'll call this school board meeting together. Call to order.
Here.
Here.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, have a moment of silence. Now we have our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Huber, is there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. I'd like to take a motion and a second to have a vote to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
I got a motion by Mr. Bodwick and a second by Ms. Bryant.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Any citizen comment? No citizen comment. Informational items, review of the minutes in May 2026. They're online for folks to look at those. So we'll go to our action items now. Claims for payment, Ms. Miller.
Yes, good evening and thank you. You have been presented this evening with claims for payment. Excuse me a minute while I reorganize all my papers here. Where total operating fund expenditures are $194,374.07. Fund 5, food service, $18,505.17. For total expenditures of $212,879.24. With this, you have also been provided with a list of claims and check registers. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
So, once again, looks like Lou Ray and Page County had the highest cost associated. Assume oil again. Which I guess brings us to the point of I can't imagine that hot water is our sole source and the control system's our sole source of burning through all this gas. I mean, that's insane. I mean, when we get receipts from the oil company, are they giving us the actual amount?
The metered ticket that goes through the truck, yes,
Okay.
and that ties to the invoice.
And do we have meters that we're able to read on our end at the school?
And
Yes, we can read on our end.
Are we taking meter readings monthly?
I can't say that for a definitive, but yes, I would assume we're checking them in the correspondence with the tickets that we're receiving from the truck.
Okay. I think.
I would
that-
also say both of our high schools are used all summer throughout the entire year, unlike the other buildings.
Okay. I just wonder if, as part of this, what we receive every month here, or every meeting here, if we can't get the meter readings, at least to see if we can start delineating a discrepancy that may exist outside of just control systems.
Okay.
Because there has to be something there.
Is there an automatic refill?
There is, yes.
Generally, if the tank gets down to whatever 25% or whatever that mark is, they're going to come back and fill it up.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's paid twice a month, that's a lot. And I'm going to step out on this. If we get new buildings by the grace of God, what's to say that they won't have the same issue?
I can't predict what that, I don't have a good answer for that, sir. I can't predict what new building systems might have in terms of efficiencies at this time.
As the anticipated cost.
I could not do that in
Yeah.
good faith.
Well, I know that'd be a little hard, but that's my fear is these are the newest buildings we have. And if it's going through $40,000 to $60,000 a month per school, that's a lot of money. And I know part of it is the system controls that we've got to get updated, that we've got to get fixed, that and then get people trained on it. I get that. So I'm sort of sitting and waiting to see how much of a difference that makes. But my God, if it still keeps being that high, there's another issue here.
I understand the concern.
Sorry.
You go ahead.
I'm waiting on approval. That's all I have for you on the
Is there
claims.
any other questions for Ms. Miller?
I guess my question, I'm sitting here trying to, I mean, we see this every time. So if there's ideas you guys can come up with as well as us, I mean, Mr. Breeden's asking about how to track it or the tracking the meters. Just help us think outside the box on how to keep a close eye on this, because it does seem like an outlier and we can't seem to pinpoint why. So that would be my ask. And I know it's very general, but we've been talking about this for a while.
Thank you.
So I need a motion to approve the claims for payment.
We need to.
I'd like to discuss one thing about that.
Okay.
I believe, that the system is wasting some fuel somehow. But we ought to do a little comparative, find the next largest building, in the county, and see what they're burning, and we may find out it's the same. The cost of fuel has not got down. And just as kind of alignment of our own sense of what the bill should be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll continue to look into it.
I second Cody's motion.
You made a motion, Cody?
We need to. So I'll make a motion to
So we got Ms. Henry made a motion and Mr. Thomas seconded.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, purchase orders over 10,000.
Yes, you have been provided with purchase orders over 10,000, quite the list this time, as I'm sure you were expecting. These purchase orders are ones that we would like to get approved so that we can begin rolling when July 1st, when we roll over into our FY27 budget. These purchase orders are either necessary to process at the beginning of July in order to purchase something that we need to continue with, or they might be recurring expenditures throughout the year, such as those O&M purchases, those larger utilities that we're paying against those purchase orders throughout the year. So these are organized for you by department, beginning with instruction. We have O&M, technology, special education, and then ones that are various, those will get divided out among accounts of different departments.
So lots of questions here. One being, I think we had discussed the potential of going out and bidding oil. Did we do that?
We have not done that as of right now.
And can you explain, if we've been paying our bills every month to Emmett Oil for the oil that we receive, what are these POs for that's coming up in the new school year?
We pay against the purchase orders. We don't put in a purchase order every time we get an invoice. So these are recurring purchases.
So this is oil, fuel that we've already received for several months back.
No. This would be for heating oil for what we're expecting for these particular schools, putting in a purchase order, and then we would receive an invoice and pay against those POs. Now, if we happen to exceed, then we would get approval for an additional purchase order.
So it's banking the money to be paid.
It's encumbering, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So are those numbers based on what we have spent this past year or over an average of the past several years?
Let me defer to, Mr. Runyon, do you know where these numbers, were these an average? So
Okay, so
this
it's based on
current
this
year
year.
plus an additional, percentage due to increase in fuel.
So
Right.
again, this is fuel that we have not received, but
Cor-
will receive.
Right, FY '27.
Okay.
But doing basic math here, if I take 155,000, and this is looking at the Luray heating oil, and divide that by 12, that's 12,000, that's $13,000 and already exceeding what we've been averaging the last several months.
But the power is in on that too. So the power, the phone.
At Emmett Oil,
No. And not in Emmett Oil, but
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
you're
line
right.
item that she's
You're
giving
right.
us for, it's all the utilities, not just oil.
You're
So
right.
that 22,000 is, am I correct?
You're
on that?
correct, yes,
Okay.
you're right.
Yeah, so it's, that line is not all oil. It's just the oil seems to be the biggest purchase each time.
So this is an annual purchase order that then we have accruals to each month.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
It's what's called an open PO.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
I mean, that makes more sense seeing the $1 million for electricity as well. Is that annual?
Correct,
Yeah.
And that's for all buildings.
that's right,
All buildings.
yes.
Okay. And is this based on last year or an average of year?
So again, FY '26, current year, and an additional for expected costs.
Yeah, for rising.
Correct.
How did you estimate that additional? Is it a
Okay. Percentage?
3%? Like, I'm assuming it's an inflation thing, but how did you get to that?
Let me defer, because I do the departments, do you know what percent was added? About 10%.
So it's, okay.
Okay.
Which is pretty standard.
That is good to cover, yeah.
You may not know the answer to this, but somebody may. The board docs that's on here, is that for the basic version or is that for the enhanced version?
Enhanced.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
and Pierce Group, who is that?
It's
Insurance.
our health insurance benefits.
Gotcha. Benefits administrator.
Yes.
All right, so I need a motion to approve these purchase orders.
And this approval is for the 27 school year.
Correct.
Make a motion that we approve the purchase orders as presented.
Second the motion.
All right, it's got a motion by Mr. Breeden, a second by Mr. Bodwick.
No.
Yes.
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 Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. VSBA policy updates.
So good evening, board, and those in the audience, as well as those at home. This evening, we are presenting the VSBA policy updates for your approval. These were the updates presented at last meeting as informational items. I'm happy to take any feedback or questions that you have at this time.
Any questions, anybody?
I have no questions, but I would start a motion to approve the VSBA policy update as presented.
Okay,
Second.
got a motion by Ms. Henry and a second by Ms. Bryant.
Yes.
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 Yes. Federal 2627 federal consolidated application.
Yes. Again, good evening. For action and approval this evening, we're presenting the 2627 federal consolidated application. It was presented at the last meeting for your review as an information item, and we are seeking approval for that item this evening.
Make,
I'll make a motion to accept the federal consolidated application.
second.
Yeah, we got a motion by Mr. Thomas and a second by Ms. Bryant.
Yes.
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 Yes. Adult meal prices, Ms. Campbell.
Hello, good evening. So I have before you all an action item for approval. It's based off the information I gave you at the last meeting for adult meal price updates for the school year 26-27. Nothing has changed since I presented the information to you all last time. Do you have any questions?
Make a motion to approve the adult meal prices for the year of 26 to 27.
Second that
We
motion.
got a motion by Ms. Bryant and a second by Mr. Bodwick.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, student representatives. Dr. Huber.
Absolutely. Very excited this evening to bring for your approval and action our student school board representative additions. We followed our normal process for this through an application from our students, recommendations by principals. Mr. Bodwick and Mr. Breeden both were involved in the interview process as well. And we've selected through that process 2 recommendations for you this evening from Luray High School. We have Maddox Moyer, and from Page County High School, Addison Kelly. Both of those representatives were selected as finalists. They are not able to be here this evening. They were on vacation, and I did not feel right asking them to come to their first board meeting while they're on vacation. So I hope that that's acceptable from the board.
They are juniors, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we got juniors on tap for 2 years. Need a motion?
I make a motion to approve the 2 school board representatives, student school board representatives.
I'll second that motion.
We got a motion by Mr. Thomas and a second by Mr. Bodwick.
Yes.
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 Yes. Our 2026 interim school board clerk, Huber.
Yes. For approval this evening and action, I am bringing to you the 2026 interim school board clerk recommendation as Miss Marina Comer, and seeking your approval for that for the remainder of the 26 school year beginning and effective July the 1st.
I'll make a motion to approve Miss Marina as the clerk, interim clerk.
We got a motion by Ms. Henry,
A second.
second by Mr. Breeden.
I just have one question.
Sure.
Why are we saying interim?
Because the clerk position is voted on at your organizational meeting, that'll happen in January. And so this interim approval and action would get you to that point from July 1st to that January organizational meeting.
Any other comments or questions? Get ready for a vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. 2026 interim school board deputy clerk.
Again, this evening, I'm bringing for approval and action your 26 interim school board deputy clerk for the same reasons as the clerk recommendation was made, and that would be Miss Nikki Clark. Seeking your approval and action this evening.
I make a motion we approve the 2026 interim school board deputy clerk.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Thomas and second by Mr. Breeden.
Yes.
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 Yes. So we're at 6:52 and we got 7 o'clock. We're starting with our RRMM.
That's
That
correct.
gives our supervisors time to get here.
Absolutely.
So we're just gonna,
The plan would be to let Mr. Phillips from RRMM get settled in. Board members, if you need to take a quick break, you have that time, but we'll start at 7 o'clock sharp, if that's okay with Ms. Moeller and the remainder of the board. Okay.
thanks for
Yeah,
following up. Paul.
absolutely. So we'll take a brief intermission until that.
So, point of order, is someone going to make the motion to go into recess for that amount of time?
I don't know about a recess. Linda, was that part of the procedure on that? Okay. She's saying we probably should, so we'll entertain a motion to have recess for 7 minutes.
I make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Breeden and a second by Ms. Hendry.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So we come back here at 7 o'clock. end our recess and go back into open session.
I motion we end our recess and go back into open session.
A second.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Bodwick and a second by Ms. Henry.
Henry.
Mr. Breeden, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Good. Thank you all for being here this evening. This is such a great opportunity for us as a school division and as a county to come together. So members of the Board of Supervisors and county administration, we just want to say before we get started, how much we appreciate this time. And I wanted to lead with that because this is such an important investment of time and energy and collaboration that for you all to be around the table with us and the school board and Mr. Phillips from RRMM and our staff means a lot. So thank you all very much for being here. The objective for this evening and here in just a minute is to turn it over to Mr. Phillips. But I did want to kind of just lay some framework, so to speak, for some things that might help you make this a productive evening and a productive discussion. So as a school division, we will start a document that captures questions, answers from Mr. Phillips, answers from others around the table, and school admin, so that we make sure that this discussion isn't lost, and it also allows you all as board members to really focus on the details, ask the questions that you have at the moment, and give us kind of a springboard to move forward to the next step. Just if we look historically back, as a board, you all last came together to approve several options for Mr. Phillips and RRMM and his team to investigate for our comprehensive facilities master plan. This evening serves as a very comprehensive update to that, and I'll let Mr. Phillips talk about the timeline and where we go from here. But I do want to encourage questions, as this is really a great spot for us to build off of as we keep working forward. We know and we recognize there are tough decisions to be made, and important decisions that will shape the children's future and the community's future in Page County for many, many, many years to come. So this is no small task and not a task or an endeavor that we take lightly. So please ask questions, and we hope that this is dialogue more than just a presentation. So those are my opening remarks. Mr. Painter, Mr. Thomas, certainly feel free to add to that as we get started, and then we can turn it over to Mr. Phillips.
Okay. Well, I just appreciate everybody taking their time out. This is very important, and it's good that we're walking together with understanding this. So please ask any questions that you have as we go through it, and just thank you for taking the time out to be at an extra meeting.
Yeah, and I agree. Thanks everybody for being here. We sincerely appreciate the invite. I think this saves time and energy and kind of keeps us together and keeps us focused. So excited to see the update.
Thank you. Phillips.
All right. Well, good evening. It's a privilege to be with you this evening. As always, we are very fortunate to be able to work alongside each of you in such a comprehensive and important process that will lead to some very long-term and lasting decisions. From the very start, I think as a group, we all agreed that whatever decisions are made in the short term need to contribute to a long-term solution, right? We don't just want to address the problem for a couple of years to have to face it again later and likely pay more for it. Whatever decision we make, we want it to contribute to the long-range goals. So that's been our charge from the very beginning. And so this evening, I'm going to give you just a few minutes up front here of some refreshing information to help you remember where we left off, and then show you the progress of where we have gone since we were all last together. We have some, I think, exciting things to show you, but also a tremendous amount of information to get through. I would say to please do stop me for questions. You don't need to hold them to the end. Let's make this a discussion rather than a presentation, please. So I will advance the slides here. And again, my name is Chris Phillips. I'm principal architect with RRMM Architects. I run and direct our Roanoke studio and serve Page County and surrounding counties up and down the 81 corridor. We are K-12 programming and design experts. This is what our foundational studio is. And so we're very, very proud to be alongside Page County in this endeavor. We were asked to get started on this assessment level. You all may remember the first time we were together back in March, we were reviewing tremendous amount of data. We were in a data collecting phase at that point and drawing that to an end with some recommendations. We had that needs assessment review and demographics done to understand where, if and where, the growth may be in Page County and how that impacts each and every one of your schools from pre-K through 12. We met with all of you all for an input session and direction, at which point you gave us a charge to get started focusing in on 3 primary options. You may recall when we first met, our net was very wide. We had, Paul, like 17, 18, 19 options that we were considering at that time as a group collectively with school administration and key stakeholders. We narrowed that down to 6. We presented those 6 to you all, and then you all said, here are the 3 that we think have the most viability that we'd like you to see take further. So we're going to show you those this evening. That's what the blue shaded area here is showing. This time from May to July is what we call a macro level concept design. Through that, we've been able to pre-plan elementary schools. We've been able to pre-plan additions to the high schools. We've looked at what it would take to compare that to renovating existing schools. So we will have all that for you here in just a little bit. But what led to that was programming workshops. That's where our team sat down with school administration and stakeholders and said, what is the need? Based on enrollment, looking forward, the next 10 years, the next 20 years, what is the need for your facilities to help understand everything from how many spaces, how many classrooms, to understanding how the sites work. As you all know, the site level understanding at a school property is extremely important. And so understanding what can be accommodated. And then we're moving quickly after post this meeting, and once we get some more decisions made, we're moving quickly into pulling all of that information into a final document, something that you all can take and use as your foundational tool for moving forward. So all the data that's been collected, all the concept designs, the decisions that have been made will all be consolidated into a document for your purposes for planning in the future. And then 2027 and beyond, who knows? Maybe some new construction, maybe some expansions, renovations. Certainly, there's going to be deferred maintenance that has to be done regardless. But 27 beyond, we'll have to see what that holds as we go through this process. So that's where we are today, to give you an update just on the progress. So some key information that this may be a bit of a refresher, but that helped inform the concept design approach. First, we looked at the facility priorities, program and space needs, and then kind of the themes that we've picked up through all the input from the stakeholders. Some of the priorities for the facilities. Obviously, you all know, understanding that your aging facilities are going to have to be addressed. The equipment is aging out or it's beyond its useful life. There are upgrades that may need to happen depending on which schools remain open. Answering questions like, does it make more sense to renovate or does it make more sense to rebuild? And looking at replacement values of those. ADA compliance and upgrades are needed division-wide. All of these items have been picked up on in a previous facilities condition assessment that was done before RRMM was brought to the table by a group, Bureau Veritas, comprehensive document that we've been able to look back on and use for reference throughout our process. but we've also validated much of that information. And then finally, understanding that we have to look at balancing some enrollment. And we looked at many, many scenarios based on enrollment and live births, building permits, all the things that impact your population. So we'll look at some of that too. From a program and space needs at the high school level, some thoughts about maybe expanding CTE lab and career readiness programs, special sized education rooms, multi-purpose classrooms versus single purpose classrooms, flex labs, if you will, some athletic and outdoor facilities, and then consideration of parity between north and south on the athletic facilities. Those are just some of the things that we discussed as a group. Some of the themes that we have is obviously there is a strong support for some investment in top-notch learning environments. That we picked up on that from all the stakeholders. The equity amongst facilities from north to south was something we picked up on. Technology upgrades to help prepare students for post-secondary education and success. And then finally, understanding that taking on any size construction process is going to take a balanced and phased approach that's fiscally responsible. So we've tried to evaluate that on all levels and bring something before you tonight that helps explain that a little more. So some of the information from the programming, educational adequacy, and capacity analysis, this should be a refresher. You all know that enrollment has decreased by about 15% in the last 10 years. Birth counts are declining, and most projections show a decrease for the next 10 years plus. So I would say that this is not unique right now. Many districts in the Commonwealth are facing the very same thing, especially the birth counts decreasing. But you can see there your enrollment in 2026 is roughly, and again, these numbers were pulled several months ago, so they change daily, as all the school administrators here know. But 2025-2026 school year, 2,971 versus 10 years ago, almost 35. So it continues to decline just a little bit every year. And then looking at the projections on the lower, this is the moderate projections. There are high and lows, so we picked the middle ground here. You can see there, for the most part, you're continuing to decrease. In 2035, you're looking at about 2,700 students total based on the current information. To put that into a sense of scale, I shared this with you just a little bit differently graphically last time. Since 2016 and 17, the school district has decreased 527 total students, whether that be through kids moving in and out of the district or just the decrease in population in general. But to give you a sense of scale, if you take this year's numbers at Shenandoah and Springfield Elementary, those enrollment numbers are 351 and 205 respectively, and you add them together, that's how many students you've lost since 2016 and 2007. It's pretty significant. Even so, you're maintaining all the same facilities. If you look now at the projected enrollment between now and 2035-36, you have a total decrease of 770 students across the district. To give you a sense of that scale, that's enough for the current enrollment at Luray High School and Luray Middle School. So basically, by 2035, you're losing an entire high school and middle school's worth of kids, based on the projections. Now, those are obviously looking very far out in the future. A lot can change. Some different industry comes into the county. Those numbers could change. You want to evaluate those, but that's based on today's information. So projected decline of 770 students by 2035. Elementary schools right now, the overall capacity is about 90%. So that's not a bad number. However, looking forward 5 to 10 years, it will continue to drop down to 85, and then after that, it'll drop more. You do have a couple elementary schools that are slightly over and 2 that are slightly under. So what's that telling us? It's telling us that you need to consider a boundary adjustment to right size some schools. Like that's something that could be considered to take those 101 and 102% and rebalance your schools across the district. But by and large, total average 90% capacity at the elementary schools. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's kind of where you want to be at an elementary school level. But if you look at your middle and high schools, you are highly underutilized. They're large facilities for the current enrollment. They're currently operating at 64% average. Both schools all four schools are at under 70%. And it'll continue to drop in 10 years down to 58%. That's significant. So you have plenty of space for more students at the middle and high schools as they sit today. We then presented you all, that was all refresher. So we then presented you all 6 options. The 3 in the gray, we all eliminated together. We said, we're not going to look at those. We don't think those have viability. And we echoed that. We said, yep, you're right. You're exactly right. So the 3 we focused on are options 3, 4, and 5. And then after some more discussions with the administration, we've added in one more to consider that's a little bit of a bonus this evening. So something for you to think about that may be a short-term solution that contributes to a long-term plan. So we'll go over each of these again just briefly, but option 3, we are looking in options 3, well, really, all of these, we're looking at options to combine the middle school and high school into one property. As we have said, this property is ample and the building is under capacity. One of the things that should be a theme for Page County is we should really think about how we capitalize on the amazing assets we already have. These schools are really great schools. They're well planned. I've said before they were well planned when they were built. They're planned for expansion. There's room here to grow. And look at this auditorium. I mean, this is a nice space. Most high schools would really prize a space like this. So let's make the most of our assets we have. 3 is renovate and expand the existing high schools to accommodate grades 7 and 8 here with the high school, plus closing all elementary schools and converting the middle schools to elementaries. 4 is combine the high school and convert the existing middle schools. So expand those, close the middle schools and renovate the 4 elementaries. And then 5 is 2 new pre-K through 6 and moving 7, 8 to the high school with an expansion. So that's creating basically a north and south campus. And through that, you have 5 schools for that option, 7 for option 4, and 5 for option 3. And then we've wiped those away, and then we've added in option 2A. 2A is a deferred maintenance and renovate and close 2 elementaries. So this brings your schools down to 7. We move 8 to the high school and close Shenandoah and Springfield. What this does is helps us prevent having to put bricks and mortar out there in the budget right away. This is a no new construction option, basically. So we'll look at all these a little deeper.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
All right. In option 4, I think it's option 4. Let me look. No, it's option 3.
Yes.
Okay. In option 3, converting LMS to an elementary has, and this is maybe not a question for you, but more for our administration. Pre-K 1 teachers and administrators have been asked about or consulted about what it means moving students through a building with all the stairs. Here's a concern. Safety of students using stairs at a pre-K 1 level because of their gross motor skills. So I don't see how Luray Middle School is viable for an elementary school. And it's not been moved off the middle school model to put it anywhere else if we go with that one. So that's a big concern for me about the safety of those kids. The second thing is the loss of teaching and learning time because of all the time it will take to move between the different levels using the stairs. The other one is Has anyone asked teachers, another one probably for our administration, has anyone asked the teachers and administration at Stanley what it's like moving students through a building with all the stairs? How much time is lost because of traveling in a building with so many stairs? And that one was a school that's been converted several times, so it's a little bit more conducive. Handrails at a certain level, all the other things at a certain level. The bathroom is more conducive to elementary students, whereas the middle school in Luray is not, and it would take a substantial amount to do that. But the big concern is about those little feet. If you've ever worked in an elementary school, you know pre-K through 1, the gross motor skills, going up and down those steps, the possibility of one of them fall, God forbid, is horrifying to me. And I've been an elementary school teacher. And moving those kids, especially without any help, no aids or nothing, moving 25 to 30 kids up and down stairs, that many levels, because you've got encore resources on one level and then their classroom on another. Then you have cafeteria on another level. So it's horrifying that Luray Middle would be ever used as an elementary school.
So obviously some of the administration things I can't respond to, but I can respond to the architectural perspective.
Yeah.
So one thing that is always a challenge is when we are looking at an existing facility is reimagining how that facility might be used. For example, you were talking about, well, this is on the 3rd floor and the cafeteria is all the way down here. You'll see later that the budget is pretty significant for renovations. And so there are ways that we can consider, for example, pre-K through 2nd grade may need to stay on the ground level. And we may have to do extensive renovations to the upper levels. Or perhaps, again, we have not looked at planning, so I'm reluctant to say a whole lot. But in plenty of other districts, we have looked at, just because the cafeteria is here now doesn't mean it has to be there after renovation. We can build a new cafeteria and turn the existing one into another function, or maybe the cafeteria gets converted to kindergarten classrooms. So I think what I would say is the square footage is there. I know it's a multi-story building, but I think with an appropriate budget for renovation, you can find ways to address some of those concerns. Obviously, we wouldn't want pre-K walking 3 flights of stairs to go to class either. So it would take a little planning. It would take some thought. But for the level of this study, we know the square footage is there, the site will accommodate it, and then we've allowed for a significant renovation budget if that conversion were to happen.
Did you happen to consider the across the street elementary school when you were comparing square footage and things like that is already on one level?
We have, and so we've even looked at, one of these options is to renovate all the elementary schools. That existing school, it does require significant renovation and expansion. It's already, even once we balance the enrollment, it's already a little undersized. So we were hoping to take advantage of the additional square footage at the middle school.
Okay.
Other questions thus far? Thank you all. So through some key findings that also inform the concept design, we know that once we programmed 2, and this is leading into option 5, by the way. We programmed 2 new pre-K6 schools. What would they be if they were equal in size? And that workshop resulted in about 120,000 square feet for two new schools. So 120,000 each. When we looked at the middle and high, so the middle being 7, 8, high 9, 12, resulted in about 59,000 square feet added to the program at each of your existing high schools. But that also takes into account some square footage you already have, such as one large competition gym, a cafeteria, an auditorium. So we're not duplicating space. We have the ability to maximize your greatest assets. So we'll look at that a little deeper in some plans here. We completed conceptual designs about how we maximize the use of the north and the south sites. And the same program information was then used to do a generalized order of magnitude cost for options 2A, 3, and 4. So you can compare those. So a significant amount of our focus and effort has been on option 5. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of planning when you're considering doing an addition to a high school and an elementary school on the same site. So we've invested a significant amount of time in that. And we used all that information then to do a comparative analysis with the other options. So we'll get through that towards the end. So option 5, we'll just briefly recap this. New classroom additions to both the 7th and 8th, for both 7th and 8th grade to both high schools. There is potential to expand elective and learning spaces, auxiliary gymnasiums, athletic facilities, and then 2 new pre-K through 6 to create 2 county campus environments. So there are efficiencies gained in some of the operational costs there. And then potentially, if the budget would to allow, some expansions to the tech center, or maybe CTE, some CTE programming happens at the school sites. Lots of pros here to this option that creates this campus model. It reduces your number of facilities, that burden of number of facilities. Remember, your enrollment has dropped significantly, but you're maintaining the same amount of facilities that you had for your much higher enrollments. It will reduce operation costs and transportation, and together with the leadership, we have looked into some of those potential savings. So we'll look at those in just a moment. It removes the need to address costly CIP improvements and the phased occupied renovations at the middle schools and elementary schools. You all recall from our previous meeting, the deferred maintenance schedule is daunting. It will have to be addressed. So it's not an insignificant amount when you compare it to the cost of building new. There's no need to seek out new land. You all remember one option we talked about, let's just build another school on a new piece of ground somewhere here in the county. That's tough to come by with the appropriate utilities and facilities that you would need to do that. So there's no need to seek out land or put money into land that you need to purchase. This approach is a minimal instruction disruptment. You can do this approach while all schools are still functioning, all kids are still going to class. It's a quicker schedule to implement. Should you be able to spend that amount of money, you can do it quicker, and you're set for 50 years. This is the 50-year plan, right? So this is setting things in motion for 50 years. The cons to that, you're closing 4 community-based elementary schools, and it's a very significant cost to demolish Page County Middle, which you'll see in a minute. We're going to use that same site to build an elementary school. When looking at enrollments, you can see there it clearly divides the north and south ends of the county. The elementary schools, the new Luray Elementary would be built on the Luray High School site. The new Page Elementary would be built nearly on top of the footprint of your existing Page Middle site. So taking advantage of property you already own. The assumption we made in our programming efforts is we're going to balance the 2 schools at about 850 students each, which is a significant size elementary school. There's some efficiencies there, though. The boundary lines are consistent with the high schools. We know that working in a lot of communities, how important that is, be able to have this sense of identity from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. So those boundaries match. And then your maximum drive times are manageable. So you can see there your total enrollments. You get enrollments between 90 and 99% based on 850 students for today's numbers. However, we know that's going down. The 7 through 12 model, same as other options, but the initial enrollment would be just over 100% if we didn't do additions. That's just taking into account the high school as it is and moving these kids here. We would be over 100%. So that told us, hey, our programming was right. We're going to have to do some additions to these high schools to make this work. And the drive times are manageable. Again, you'll see there the boundary lines match with the elementaries.
Okay, I have a question. A couple, actually.
Yeah.
With the projected combined enrollment for Shenandoah and Stanley for the new Page Elementary School for 3031 of 640 pre-K through 5 students, has the wastewater plant been considered for upgrades to handle the new elementary school and high school campus model? That's one question. The other question is, has an analysis been completed as to how much water volume is used at Shenandoah and Stanley to know the waste volume that will be added stress to the wastewater plant, and if it can handle that high volume? Now, Luray doesn't fall into this
Right.
because they're own public sewer.
It has a package plan. Yeah.
Here's some concerns that I only mention this because I didn't see it mentioned anywhere in the plan. So with additional 640 students using the restrooms, using considerably more water at the elementary level, will the wastewater plant be able to handle it as it is today? What I don't want to see happen is the new school is opened in 2 weeks in, and then find that the wastewater plant can't handle the two-school output, and the new school can't continue, or portable restrooms need to be brought in at a high cost factor, and then the plant needs to be overhauled.
That's a very thorough question. So, first I would respond to if this were to become a project, I can assure you that this design team is not going to be seeing a portable toilet brought onto a brand new school site.
I would hope not.
No. You will see when we get to the cost that we have a site allowance number that is fairly significant. I think for the high school sites, it was about $7 million. So the thinking is preliminarily, we would say that additional investigation is certainly going to need to be done. That is not within the purview of our study. However, we feel confident that the solution is there. You can either expand or it may accommodate it as is. Recall that both of these high schools are operating well under their capacity.
Yes, but it's operating with middle and high school now, but you're adding an additional 640 kids. Is it going to be able to handle additional 640 more kids with a high volume of water usage? It's handling it now fine, but what if?
I tell you what, we can, if you want to record that question, I'll have the civil engineer run numbers to give you some assurance or give you a directional.
Because I certainly don't want the school board going back to the board of supervisors and
Absolutely
saying,
not.
hey, you gave us this amount of money, but now we need an additional $4 million to fix the sewer plant, or we can't open the new school we just built.
Right.
Yeah, so at this point, I want to just, Marina's documenting questions, and we'll call it a parking lot question.
Yes.
And we'll park it for you guys to go back. And if we have any more of those, just to identify those for us.
That'd be great.
Just call it a parking lot question.
That's a parking lot question.
Yeah, yeah.
The current scope of work doesn't really call for us to dig deeply into that existing plant. However, we understand how important that decision is. So we will have our civil engineer do some numbers and validate that for you.
Okay.
Okay?
And the other question is, back on the other slide, you mentioned about how was the drive time calculated. I want to know how the drive time was calculated and for whom. Concern, was it calculated with the travel speed set by the DOE for our buses and using actual bus routes as the measure? 2, how long would it take any student to be on the bus from pickup to drop off at a school and then reverse?
So the first question, yes. This is based on current existing bus routes. We are not rewriting your transportation plan in any of this. It could certainly be looked at by your transportation folks and potentially even improved. I don't know, but it's based on current bus routing and distance. That's purely it.
And speed.
And speed, obviously. Yes.
Okay.
And the second question was, there was a second part to that.
The one was calculated travel speed
Yes.
by DOE and actual bus routes used. You
Yes.
answered that.
Yes.
The other one is how long would it take a student for pickup and drop off? Well, if that's the pickup and drop off, then you've answered
Yes.
that question.
Yes, sir. That is it.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else before we move forward?
Oh, yep, another one. Sorry, guys. With option 5 and the 2 new elementary schools, has this design been constructed before? If so, and this is more for our admin, can a group of elementary staff view it and get a feel for it before and see if it fits our needs and what changes would be needed if it's been constructed in a way that we can get input from that school division as how it works for them and if they would make any changes knowing what they know now as they use it?
That's a great question. So this design is not a prototype. This is not one we just pull off the shelf and put on a site. However, this model, this approach has been done many, many times. This particular layout that we used on both of these conceptual plans, again, please keep in mind, these are conceptual plans. We have not detailed the steel frame of this building, right? We have not, this is not what the purpose of this study. It is to, first of all, determine the size of the building and a layout that works and responds to your site and accommodates the program that we've all established together. So, number one, it is not a prototype, but there are many, many schools that my firm and other firms have designed that are close, very close in size, scale, layout, classrooms, and I would be happy to put as many of you on a 15-passenger bus and take you around the state and show you each and every one. I would say that our clients, RMM's clients, would be more than happy to accommodate you all, your questions, take you on tours, show you what works and what didn't. All of those things are completely feasible and possible right away.
Okay, so when you go to show us the new layout of the building, there's not one has been built to that design.
Exact design? No, sir.
Okay.
There are very similar projects. The plan you'll see here, in fact, is nearly done and under construction. A very similar one in Roanoke City right now, Preston Park Elementary School. Very, very similar. Another one is Meadowview Elementary in Henry County near Martinsville. I could probably get you a list of 15 that are close. Okay. But this is not a cookie. This is not something we just pull off the shelf and say, here you go, Page County, go build it. This is from scratch, but with principles that are common with a lot of our other elements.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So let's jump into that a little bit. So what you're seeing here is just an aerial image of Luray High School, where we sit right now. We will look at Luray and Page separately. The sites are unique to each other, but we're sitting here in Luray, so we'll look at this one first. You can see in the screen there, I bet you this doesn't show. You can see the shadowing. I'm going to point that. What looks to be rough dimensions of athletic field.
Yes.
See softball here. This is a soccer practice area right here. We're stopping, which is see it again as it's standing. It does kind of walk down. But right out here. So significant. And it's fairly good. It's good fun. Now we don't have a geotech report for it. We don't know what's underground, but we can only assume that there's probably some limestone hiding under there. We're in it's going to happen. So that would want to be one of the next steps you take if you're strong enough to get the geotech report. You can see the parking lot here, the layout here. It's a well-designed, compact site. So if we flip forward to the concept plan, what you see here is white. The existing parking here. We went ahead and laid the footprint of future athletics. But what we wanted to do is we're not necessarily saying that you're going to invest this money now. But we want you to make sure that you would serve at that place. It's pre-planned. We don't want it. In other words, we did want to put that. So we went ahead and shadowed those in. What you see in blue is something that we must deal with in every construction project in the state of Virginia. That is deal with control model. It is a requirement that you must do this. What we don't want to do is forget it. So we went ahead and had our civil engineers look at the site and say, where are the ideal locations for that so we can fix it better. Then we dig into some of the utilities. What surprised us after a little bit of investigation is this red line here represents a sanitary sewer enforcement. It's not something we necessarily want to dig into. So we dashed that in. Okay, let's see what we have left. What is left? Oh, okay, you're gonna be my man. All right, all right. We talked about it. So what does the site have to offer? Well, if you all, next time you drive into the site, take a peek up this way, you'll see that it's kind of really accommodating, lovely site that's really accommodating. This is the footprint of an elementary school that is roughly 100. This particular model will vary slightly from the model at Page. But this is being a little bit more responsive to the site. We have a good ability to level this pad and make a good two-story element. So you have, we'll look at this in a minute, you have classroom wings that are oriented in the ideal orientation to take advantage of the natural grade. That is a principle that you're going to want to think about, whether we're the designer or someone else. Natural daylighting impacts in attitude, in scientific proven, in impact testing, attendance, the environment, the attitude, everything changes when the classrooms are lit. So we try to, as best we can, create this stringent plan, which you see in a lot of our own, that allows natural daylighting on the side. So we can do 2 classrooms, do a double loaded corridor down the middle, classrooms both sides. And then it also creates space in between for your younger generation, your young pre-K to 2, that corridor or that courtyard area is space. We also have areas here. One of the commonalities amongst our stakeholders was, if we're going to do this campus plan, we need to take advantage of everything that we offer to our kids because of the co-working. In other words, could some of this outdoor space be used for outdoor gardens, to understand how to grow food, how we've even done elementary schools where they grow a small garden, and within the school they have small little demonstrations for a street salad, for first grade. So that is accommodated here. We've got a remarkable play that you can see a garden space or what have you. Now, what that means is, perhaps you consider at the high school level a future CPS. So that culinary arts program can take advantage of that same garden space, or those kids can see how that works as they get older. So, just principles like that we try to apply throughout. You can see there's the elementary school. The site circulation on this site actually is very accommodating. We have a way in, a way out. We separate bus traffic from parent drop-off traffic. We separate middle school from high school drop-off. And so this edition here is representing the 7th and 8th grade edition. And we looked at several options. We looked at expanding your existing wing, maybe dedicating a wing to the 7th and 8th grade. And it would work. However, when we looked at a little deeper, how are we going to help the 7th and 8th grade a little more separated from the 8th grade? From the 9th. This end of your building, as you know, like you said, this is your gymnasium and all your athletic facilities. Those are the things you want to maximize shared, being able to share. So we planned the 7th and 8th grade classroom, an entry, this is dedicated entry here, and then a small classroom wing here, and an auxiliary room directly adjacent to your existing. So you're taking advantage of what you have. Not only that, you're going to expand it, allowing other kids to be able to use it, while still keeping them separated and circulating into the classroom. So there's some very simple principles there. Those will apply to both schools because both high schools are very similar. So this layout will be the same on both schools. Any questions? Anything I can expand on?
So just a couple quick questions. So in the high school, the cafeteria, some of the common areas are still shared
Yes, sir.
amongst the middle school and the high school?
Kitchen, cafeteria, kitchens are very costly to build. Kitchen here is for a critical size. So what it would mean is that you would need to re-examine as well. But you'll need to re-examine the shift, our shift. But the hope is you can not have to
replicate that.
So what does that look like for a shift? Like, and I know we're not into the details, but we wouldn't have kids eating lunch at 10 o'clock.
No, not, it would not be that significant of a shift.
Okay.
Not significant of a shift. It'd be adding that.
Then another question is, I know it's not a problem now, but optimistically, we're going to have a problem in the future with growth. Where do we add on to either of these buildings at in the future?
Okay. That's a great question. So, well, let's start with the elementary school. These wings are all designed to be expanded. And in this scale, it's kind of hard to tell how much space you would have, but there is still significant space to have classrooms for those wings. And the plan also accommodates adding a third wing. That's one of the great approaches of these more senior type plans. You can add a wing pretty easy. Seventh and eighth grade addition here is actually, and to your question, we did look at a single story. And it ate up too much of the park area that's needed. So this is a two-story model, and there's actually surplus space within the plant. Right now, and again, so you can imagine with me, this is the entry to the middle school. Second floor of that entry, right above the floor of the building, right now it's just labeled as a community. Because I know one thing the community lacks is proper meeting space, those are. So that community room is really a space holder for future classes. So it's built in the plan to expand within the
What's the approximate dimension of that building for the elementary school?
this year.
Yeah,
It's, well, in square footage, it's 120,000 square feet.
yeah. Length or,
Width,
That's single,
no, it's
Double?
two-story.
Two-story.
At the elementary?
For your upper grade.
So fourth and fifth would be on the second level.
Correct.
And sixth?
And
Okay, so that's not a question I asked you, but that would, because I thought, my God, how's all those grades going to fit in that small space?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
very close.
yeah. And then the other question I have is right there in front where of the where I would assume the front of the building where you have play, a big green area. What's the white around it? Is that a sidewalk or is that a road?
so, right, this is probably not the best label, but this is just the bus. So it's only going to be used at morning.
Okay, because my concern was if kids are out on the playground and you got parents coming in all different times, picking up and deliveries dropped off and,
These areas are marked as all at play. So typically you would use a playground apparatus, same thing for especially in these kind of interstitial spaces inside the building.
so the playground's going to be put back there and maybe where the front play, it can be the community garden.
Correct.
Okay,
Or a play field, something that's open, not no play apparatus. But I should have explained this a little better. The thinking, one great thing you have is like to separate. Well, in any schools, when parents are dropping off, picking up, buses are coming to the door, people are trying to get in for their day. It can be a real suggestion. So one of the great advantages you have in the site, you're already touching the two locations. Now this location is on the south side, not necessarily developed, but it's there. I think it's actually more of a service. You can develop this exists already. So what this allows us to do is separate vehicular traffic from bus traffic. The bus traffic, ideally, would enter the lower level of the site, would drop off to middle school and high school, and then go around this side of the building and drop off here to elementary. So it keeps two access.
that's good for Luray, but what about the page?
Which is why I said one of the great advantages you have in this.
Yeah, because it doesn't work that way
does
for
not
page.
have that, well, any other thing labeled these as future football, we didn't want to pay ourselves. So to your question about how does the building lay out, this is just, again, conceptual spaces. So you can tell there's no doors, there are no walls. It's accommodating for all the blues of classrooms, gymnasium at one end versus cafeteria and kitchen at the other. We even examined the potential of in the cafeterias be a campus model or not, at the end of the day, probably no safety there to think about. So this is the perfect size to sort of this building, fix that. It's also on the upper public side of the building, easily accessed by visitor parking and staff and other visitors. You can see there, here. This school too has a community unit, a smaller community, and a group learning room, the library on the second floor, overlooking the really nice art music.
Okay, this is a question that I ask, and I know I'm jumping ahead because this design is not the actual design that we'll probably have labeled for everything, but I didn't see communal bathrooms, and there's 2 music rooms, there's 2 art rooms. I mean, I'm assuming they're just placeholders, and
They are, and also you see an ag part of, you know, this would be a more, we have kind of a government space. The gray, I guess, vertical circulation, that would be, you know, game toilets, elevators, main toilets, more stacked above. So they're accommodating in there, but we're not designing full picture. We're
Right.
expecting to build perfect.
where's the stairs that go up to the second level?
These are both indicating stairs. on
Okay.
the unit, and there's a central monumental stair.
Is there an elevator?
The box would be
Okay.
and I'm happy that we programmed this down from, 1 square foot. We have clinic space, all the administration space. We have all that. But at this level, we don't represent.
It's sort of as a placeholder. It's
Yeah,
not.
it's correct. It's to make sure the building is the right size.
Right.
It's, we can shape it, work with the size. Again, this is a model, I may even have it. Other elements, very successful. In fact, Meadowview Elementary in 2018, 2019, won gold medal.
Is that the one in Henry, or when's the one in Roanoke open?
This fall.
Okay. So before we get to ours,
Oh, yeah.
they'll be in their building 1 or 2 years.
We could arrange to work with you next.
No, I want them to use it, know their feedback of what works and what doesn't work for them if they're using this same kind of.
Interestingly enough, they have just gone through the very same process that you all have started with the adjusting the boundaries. They've had to adjust their boundaries to accommodate that white side. All of the Preston Park is one. They designed and built this kit from the school, and they had to adjust boundaries to get it the right size. Can we move to bed?
So folks, I can hold it. That's okay. Is that all right? Most of the time, folks don't have to tell me to speak up, but I realize this is piped in. So we're looking here at Page, and you've already picked up on some of the pinch points that we're going to need to talk about. But just again, going over same process, let's talk about what you have already. Existing baseball, existing football and track. You will notice the track has a funny shape to it. You ran out of space. So technically you don't have a regulation track there if you wanted to get down and measure it.
We're aware.
Okay. We have, unfortunately, one entrance to the site is established, and it is already a very tight pinch point. You have the track really bordering it very tightly with a significant slope, and then you have hitting facility dugouts, and then you get into the baseball field. So it's already very constrained there. Then as we come on up the site, oh, and by the way, property boundary, the schools own out to this access road. Is that right, Paul? Out to here. So you have this property available. Unfortunately, it is fairly significant in its sloping. So putting in an access road, for example, would probably be fairly cost prohibitive.
Not saying it can't be done, but we're just not trying to spend our dollars on building roads. We want to try to get it into the bricks and mortar. So fairly sloping, but extends up the north here on 340. And then you come around, bus loop drop-offs. This is the existing middle school here. This is your softball field and facility there. And that will be something we will want to talk about at length, I think, here in just a few minutes. This is the existing cell tower on site. The cell tower has some constraints of its own. You cannot build within a certain distance of that. It's the fall distance of the tower. We don't want our school within the fall distance of the tower. So we had to take that into account. Existing parking, and then the Page County High School layout you're very familiar with. We're setting in its sister right now. So that site you're very familiar with. Now, what's challenging about this site is the topography gets fairly significant in the wooded area, hence why it's still wooded, right? We didn't decide to push up there a little further. So that's a constraint that we have to take into account. So with that said, where do we place a new elementary school and create this campus model? All along in our projections, early on in this presentation, we talked about the fact that we're going to propose that we're demolishing Page Middle. It is one of the more significant deferred maintenance costs facilities that you have. Require a tremendous amount of work. So we're going to propose that we demolish that to make room for a new elementary school. We're also going to propose that the softball field get relocated, because what we have here is a unique situation on the site. This tree line here, as you see, creates also a fairly significant sloping condition. So the elevation of this parking lot is significantly higher than the elevation of this school. You all know this, right? You've been there many times. So what opportunity does that present to us if we are going to demolish the middle school? What can we do to make this an efficient, walkable campus? Again, echoing the thought of let's take advantage of our greatest assets, figure out how these two schools can work together, perhaps share even some instructors, share some programs, just make best use of the facilities. And our response to that is, well, we want to try to take advantage of this sloping condition and build this close to the high school so we create a walking campus. So here's what that might look like. This addition, they're identical at both schools. So whatever we're doing at Luray, we're doing at Page. And it works, right? Middle school addition, entry, its own bus loop area. This band practice field is new here. Stormwater represented in blue. But you'll notice that what once was the softball field is now the footprint of the elementary school, which I understand might be a significant ask. However, we can rebuild a softball field for significantly lower cost than we can build an elementary school. So we can rebuild that softball field with all its history, all the things that it has now, and even better, it becomes a shared facility with baseball. They get to capitalize on some of the same facilities, it's the same parking, it's co-located. You create this athletics kind of district in the lower east side of the site here, so it makes sense, it works. And that opens up the most prime real estate for your new elementary school. You'll notice the footprint is very, very similar to Luray. However, what's different is that we're not having to build as much square footage because we're taking advantage. You see these lines here, that's your sloping grade going down. So you have basically a split level kind of approach. You're coming in on the main level here and the upper floor of the elementary school. And the lower grades are down at grade. So they're down near the play fields, they're down near the soccer fields. They get to take advantage of. The soccer field is here for the high school, but during the day, it is the play field for the elementary school. So again, efficiencies in spending the dollar the best you can, getting the most use out of that facility. So in plan, this probably looks very familiar, but you'll notice these spaces here are not having to be replicated on two levels. They actually get to live on the lower level down at the existing middle school elevation. So this guy here, this entry, is at elevation with the high school. So it's very walkable. You get to share parking for some of the special events. But a very similar layout, right? Cafeteria and kitchen, gymnasium, library, administration. All these are extra community rooms here. And if you wanted to, or the community rooms are above the administration, I'm sorry. This is the lower level. Again, stairs at the end.
If I could verify that
Yes.
lower level. So on the right, what level is that currently? Is that at the middle school?
This is at, let me back up because it's easier to talk about on the site level.
Okay.
That is what I would call the lower level. It's not buried. It's lower level, but it's at the elevation of your existing middle school.
Okay.
So it's lower.
All right.
Your main level is at a higher elevation. This, to your question earlier, this is what we have executed flawlessly at Roanoke City for Preston Park. Preston Park did that exact thing. It's an urban site, but it has slope. And so to take advantage of that, we had lower grades on the lower level. And it's someplace you can visit and see.
So, question.
Yeah.
If pre-K 1, so pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, and first grade is on the lower level, but the cafeteria and all the other things are on the upper level?
Yes. And this one, you would have to navigate a flight of stairs. However, you may...
It will be at their level and...
Yes.
And the rails are there and...
Correct. It's a new build, so it's accommodating for small legs, short legs, small feet.
And the rise of the steps and
Correct.
everything is more conducive. Okay.
Correct.
I got a quick question for you.
Yes,
just
sir.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Mr. Thomas said. So, would the plan for, in the event of a need for expansion at the Luray Elementary, I kind of feel like we obviously have plenty of room and sort of set up that way. This seems pretty
Tight.
locked into that footprint. So, is the plan to have, like, I guess, the internal capacity to build out for more occupancy, or an addition of more wings?
We would want to examine adding a wing.
Okay.
Is what we would do in this particular. Now, there is still space here and here to add, if you look at the scale of things, you could probably add 4 classrooms per wing fairly easily.
Okay.
So that's 8, that's 4 per level. So
Right.
that's 8 more classrooms. That's significant growth
Yeah.
over time.
Perfect. Thank you.
And talk about a minute the soccer field. What's the idea of taking the soccer field from the existing football arena and moving it up?
So the thinking, it's sized for soccer, for practices and things like that. You might not necessarily hold competition here, but what we use many times at elementary level, what we would size as what we call a multi-purpose field. We use soccer as the distance parameters because that usually accommodates everything that you would do at an elementary level. But then it allows folks to use that when there's need for practice facilities. So the high school could practice there without having to go off-site or use, random field areas. So it's sized as soccer, but we're not proposing that you're moving the soccer competition to the side. At least not in this.
One thing I would ask to be added on that is just what line the current middle school is at on that view, the conceptual space plan.
Oh,
Go back to
the
the other
footprint of the building?
Yeah, go back to the other slide that was up here. This one right over here. Well, I can't.
Okay,
Which
that one
is that? Yeah. Where would that line be? Where the existing school's at? Is that part of the?
So, yeah. You can kind of see it right there.
Okay, right in there?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
All right, any other questions on the design? Again, this is what we call a macro level study, so very big picture, high altitude. If this is an option you wanted to pursue further, you would want to ask us to dig deeper into some details, start putting together construction drawings and things like that. That's pretty far down the road. All right, so let's talk about cost. you'll bear with me just a minute, I'm going to put this back. So costs for option 5. First, let's look at the construction costs for the elementary schools. The elementary school portion, 120,000 square feet. Current value, this is what we call order of magnitude. So it's a cost per square foot analysis. We're not doing takeoffs of materials. We're not counting bolts and weighing steel here. We're just using a square foot cost number that we've seen in many other projects right now, and also in talking with builders, keeping our eye on the market, and then using an independent cost estimator to verify where. Right now, we would not suggest in today's dollars, and I should say it's down here in the corner of the screen, all values you're going to see this point forward are today's dollars. We all know that today's dollars will change after we go to bed. So, plan for things like escalation. If you choose to move forward with any of these options, be considering. So based on today's dollars, about $425 per square foot for bricks and mortar. I would not suggest any less than that right now for new construction. So each school, about $51 million per school. We have a site work allowance of about $2.5 million for just the elementary schools. Now keep in mind, there's a bigger site work number that's accommodated with the middle school addition. That takes into account more site development. So we have an allowance of about $2.5 million for parking lots, playgrounds, grading, things like that. Now, let me explain just briefly the difference between hard cost and soft cost. Hard costs are the bricks and mortar of the project. Many times when budgets are assembled, we assemble them based on hard costs. Well, there's many more costs to the project that aren't bricks and mortar. And sometimes that gets lost. In our estimates, we try very early on to prepare you for soft costs and help you budget that. General rule of thumb, at a macro level, about 15% of your budget should be set aside for soft costs. Soft costs include things like furniture, testing and inspections, design fees. Basically, the way I describe hard costs is that if you took a building and you took the roof off and you turned it upside down and you shook it, everything that falls out is a soft cost. Everything that stays in there, that's a hard cost. That's bricks and mortar. So about 85 hard, 15 soft. So that's how that number is derived at about $9.44 million for soft costs. Furniture packages, things like that add up quickly. So we don't want you to lose sight of that. So if you look at total order of magnitude costs per school for the new pre-K 6 elementaries, about $62.9 million per school. Okay? Now let's look at the expansion of the high school. About 59,500 square feet added to the school, which when you consider you're building basically a new middle school, that is very, very reasonable. Most middle schools are north of that 120,000 square feet easily. So the additions to the high schools for 7th and 8th grade, 59,500 square feet at $425 per square foot. About $25.2 million per school. You'll see the next two lines are for light renovation and heavy renovation. Anytime we're considering an addition to a school, you will have to touch the existing school in some way. We have not identified to a great degree what that is, but the purpose of these line items is to help you hold a budget for it because you know it's going to happen. We also identify light versus heavy. Light renovations, think about as paint, flooring, ceilings, light finishes, things like that. That's a light renovation. Heavy renovation, that's moving walls. That's tearing down bricks. That's doing the heavy, dirty work. So those values are different. Light renovation at about $125 a square foot. Heavy renovation at about $275. That heavy renovation may include things like modification to your existing mechanical system, for example. So we have numbers accommodated and allowances for that for each school. Then we carry a very heavy site work allowance because we're going to have to build parking lots, access roads. You're going to be relocating a softball field in one location. You may be considering doing upgrades to a sanitary plant at a location. So that's $7 million plus, remember, you have 2.5 held back for the elementary. So you have about $9.5 to $10 million of site work per site. So that's a healthy allowance. I will tell you all that as an architect, I do not want to be the low bidder. So these numbers I'm giving you are conservative, but there's things that you can count on for moving forward for budgeting purposes. So per school for the middle school, 7th, 8th editions, $34.2 million for hard costs, and soft cost at about $6 million for a total cost of about $40.3 per school, which when you consider that as technically a new middle school, that's a tremendous value. It's still a lot of money. So now let's look at that as a total analysis. Working with the leadership, we dug into things like operating costs, expenses, less the CIP things that you're going to have to address. Don't forget that if you do nothing, you still have nearly $300 million of deferred maintenance to address in the next 20 years. So it's significant. So if we look at this as a total cost, so we can look at a net 20-year investment. High school renovations, and this is combining both schools as if we were doing all campuses, all schools. This is all in one budget here. So high school renovations, about $80 million, 40 at each campus. The soft costs are included in that number. The two elementaries, same number there, 62.9, soft costs are included. At Page, you will have a demolition of the existing middle school. It is much more cost effective to tear down a school than to renovate it most of the time. So that's only about $1.5 million to take that school down and rebuild on that existing site, which when you think about having to buy 40 acres with the utilities, that $1.5 million is a great value. So you look at that, the total estimated cost is a daunting number, $207 million, which is huge. We know that's huge. But when you look at the operating analysis where we take out the operating, and now let me stop here and ask, let me say this. From here down, these are all early estimates. There are lots of things that go into figuring out operating costs. I think the leadership has done a fantastic job identifying as best we can today, but some of these things may need to continue to be massaged if any of these plans are decided on to move forward. So the operating expenses, the savings you see by closing Springfield, Luray, Stanley, Shenandoah, Luray Middle, and Page Middle for 20-year operating expenses, almost $25 million. The CIP costs for all those schools that you're going to have to face, if you don't close them, you're going to have to face it, whether it be all at one time or incrementally, $112 million. That's what's pending for all of your existing schools. Your new, they tried as best they could to include new operating expenses, and personnel savings is right now, again, an estimate, but about $50 million in personnel over 20 years by co-locating on campuses. So your net 20-year investment there, about $38 million, with annual expenses about 1.9. Yes, sir.
I don't want to rain on a parade, but we're going into a lot of detail on something that, quite frankly, I'm not sure is going to be that doable. We're talking, if I'm reading it correctly, you're talking about on option 5, you're doing $207 million of investment.
Yes, sir.
You know what that is in tax rate?
It's a significant amount of money.
Yeah, it's something that we just been through just on the reassessment, so we're not going to be something that's going to happen as quick on this. Have you considered a phase in to get to where we need to go?
That's exactly.
And that's where we need to be talking about now instead of the details on all this stuff, which is not going to fly at $207 million.
Yes. And that $207 million is not, and again, we're not financiers. We're not, suggesting that you're going to go get a loan for $207 million or send out a bond for $207 million. You'll see in our next steps what we recommend when it comes to that.
I think
we would absolutely recommend
I think we need to move to that instead of so much detail on this.
We can.
My personal opinion, anyway.
Can we do the comparative analysis to help paint the full picture? I'll move quickly.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, so you see this investment. Same format. I'll tell you what, to speed up time, I'm not going to talk about and recap the options. But what we'll look at here is this is option 4. This is still combining the schools. So those concept plans you saw for the middle school, high school apply. The cost for those will apply. But this is renovating 4 elementary schools. So keeping your elementary schools and renovating. This is one of the options you all asked us to look at as option 4. If you look at this cost, your annual estimated expenditure is quadruple or double what it would be with a $207 million expansion budget. So you can see here, keeping your 4 elementary schools when compared to that makes no sense. Option 3. Option 3 is converting your existing middle schools to elementaries, which, as we have already discussed, we know we have some issues that we'll have to address through design that aren't going to be inexpensive. But option 3, combining the high school with middle school, same plan as you all have already seen. However, we're going to close the elementaries and renovate, expand, whatever we need to do to the middle schools to make it happen. So I'm not going to go through all that. Take my word for it when I say the boundaries and enrollments work. But when we get to the cost, the new construction for the additions are still the same. All that stays the same for the high schools. But when we look at the total cost here, the estimated annual expenditure is $1.3 million. So more cost effective than building 2 campuses if you look at it in that manner. It's still $146 million of investment. Yes.
So my only quick question for that too, so that's converting the existing middle schools.
Yes, sir.
So I guess my large concern, and I hear everything you're saying, Mr. Ladderback, my only concern is if you spend the millions and millions of dollars to renovate these old middle schools, I'm just concerned in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, the next groups are going to be sitting right here, and then we're going to be looking at spending more money again, rather than doing it right the first time, I would say. I mean, my only concern is, again, the core infrastructure of that building, I'm thinking of Page Middle in particular,
Yep.
is still what?
62.
How old?
1962.
Yeah, so I guess that's my only question and concern. I mean, even with your renovations, I mean, how does that look?
It's significant, right?
Yeah.
So we'll get to a summary page that'll kind of help you all see all these together. The last option that we looked at here in the final hour is considering a no construction option to be able to implement something quickly to help look at budget savings long term that contributes to a long-term plan. So option 2A. I'm going to review this one a little more in detail. We're moving the 8th grade to the high schools. You can do that without doing an addition to either of these schools. You can move 8th grade right away without doing additions. So no construction on the high school. You then would look at converting LMS and Page County Middle to a 4 through 7. And then Luray Elementary and Stanley converted to a pre-K through 3. So basically you're going to 2 primary schools and then a 4 through 7 and then an 8 through 12. What that means is you'll be closing Shenandoah and Springfield. We picked those 2 based on several reasons. Their geography being one. 2, there are ways that the county and the schools can work together for alternate uses for those facilities. For example, Shenandoah would make a tremendous civic facility of some capacity. It has a beautiful auditorium with a little bit of investment that could be a public civic facility of some capacity, maybe even a revenue generating facility. So that's one reason we looked at that one. Also, we looked at that one because the site is very constrained. There's nowhere to go. The school is already over capacity and traffic circulation is a nightmare. Similar to Springfield. If you all have ever been up there on drop off and pickup time, it is a well choreographed dance right now. That's how I will put that. It is quite the scene. So we picked those 2, geography and other reasons that just seem to make sense. Plus, we can help balance the enrollment in the other 2 schools. That's what we did here. We went ahead and ran the numbers. These are all new scenarios. I won't belabor them, but what I will tell you is if you were to implement this, not this coming fall, but the next fall, for example, initially Stanley is going to be over capacity, but just slightly. And with the projections declining, it will be corrected pretty soon on its own. However, you may want to consider looking at some renovations at Stanley, although we don't have that in this budget, just the deferred maintenance. The middle schools, they work quite well. There's plenty of room in those middle schools as they are. And then obviously the high schools, this helps, moving 8th grade actually helps maximize the use of these high schools. There's plenty of space here to accommodate them, but it still keeps your capacity well under 90%. So that means it's not going to bump the needle so much that it creates a bunch of heartache here at the school. Now, let's look at the cost.
Well, before you move on to that, I do have a question and concern going back to putting the middle school at the high schools. In the new addition for that middle school, what heating is it being used from? Is it from these boilers that we already have here?
No.
It's on its own?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
No, we would not tax. Now, what I will say is we will look at your existing systems to see what can be improved through the project or what can be shared. But it's not the cost. What really matters here is the cost at this level. The cost accommodates it being its own self-sustaining contained system.
Got it. Thank you.
So if our capacity allows us to move the 8th grade to the existing high schools, why do we need to consider building space for both 7th and 8th grade? Could we not consider just building for 7th grade or restructuring that based on existing capacity?
So I can go back and show you those numbers if you all would like. We did. There is one of the early charts here did show what it would be if you did that, and you're like at 108% over capacity.
I'll find out. Thank you.
I think it's 108. It's above 100. So long story short, if you keep the high schools as is, this estimate that you're looking at still has dollars assigned to it because, again, whatever option you choose, if you choose to do nothing at all, you still have to accommodate the deferred maintenance that's been identified. It is still a significant number. So what you see here is the deferred maintenance at the high school, according to the Bureau Veritas documents and projected forward, is $36 million. Again, this is over a 20-year span here. This is how this is calculated. So you still have significant investment there. Page Middle, Luray Middle, Luray Elementary, and Stanley Elementary all have significant 20-year deferred maintenance numbers there. So all of those are reflected. You will have to have some temporary measures in place to have all this space be able to technically have some swing space and make the 6th grade have a temporary home for a little while. So you're going to have a 6th grade temporary classroom situation, roughly about a $2 million allowance for something that you're not going to recoup. These are modular classroom campuses to make this happen in a short term, not a long term. So for a 3-year rent, delivery, setup, site prep, that's about a $2 million cost. So you see there the total estimated costs, long-term, 20 years, $106 million. Now that's still half the cost of our big plan, right? The big campus plan that was 207 or 210 million. However, it's still pretty significant. Yeah. Now, what you don't realize through this, though, is the amount of savings through operational expenses and the CIP expenses and personnel expenses. So the bottom number there, the annual estimated expenditure, is still almost $3 million. So I put all this on a sheet to show you this. You can look at all these side by side and create your own conclusions here. But option 2A is listed first. You're maintaining 7 schools. The construction investment is about $106.5 million. Your long-term net 20-year investment about $58 million. Your annual estimated expenditure of that over 20 years, 2.9 million. Option 3, which is converting the middle schools, it has its own challenges, but you see that bottom line number of a 1.1 million seems seemingly to be a great value there, but it will have challenges to convert those schools. Option 4, combining middle school and high school and renovating the existing elementaries. It surprised us even how significantly more it's going to cost you to keep your existing schools. You can see that annual expenditure of almost $4 million. And then finally, option 5, which in everyone's mind, even ours, is like, that is a grandiose plan. It's no chance that's going to happen. That's a ton of money. Where are we going to get $207 million? We understand that. We're not here to sell that idea. We're here to show you the options. But you can see the annual estimated expenditure over 20 years is $1.9 million. So you put all those side by side, there's a lot of debate there to be had about what the next steps are.
Is there
option? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is there anything in option, the new option, I guess 2A, that would not make option 5 viable down the road? Is there any?
That's a great question. Thank you. When I opened this conversation, one of the first things that I said was, whatever decision we want to help you all and lead you all toward, we want to make sure it contributes to the long-term plan.
Right.
So that option is one that you can implement that will contribute to option 5 at some point in the future. And it's not just even the tangible bricks and mortar. It's even thinking about things about, how are the kids going to be transitioning, right? Thinking about, hey, my kid's going to be in pre-K next year, but if you implement this plan in the next, 10 years, it's going to impact my kid again. So how are you thinking about that ahead of time? 2A starts to take that into account. So if you're working towards any of the other 3 options, 2A can contribute to that plan.
To any option.
Is there a security risk with modulars? When I went to the LES school, they have buildings out back that they said they cannot use because of security risk. And 2A requires modulars.
There's risk in everything that we do, right?
Sure.
However, having modulars is just a part of our risk management plan, and it's something not uncommon for schools to have in place. So I would say it's something we could certainly implement and have accounted for in our crisis management and safety plans.
And I can expand on that some too. We have helped plan for temporary measures for many, many projects. And can they be a security risk? Absolutely. But as Dr. Huber said, anything that we do can be if we're not thinking about how to mitigate those risks. So modular classroom campuses or pods can be very effective. They can be effectively planned, but they can't be haphazardly done. You really have to think about, first of all, what grades are going in them. So sixth grade, pretty good grade to think about being temporarily in a modular unit because they can circulate to and from the main building pretty easily. Putting a kindergarten in a modular unit becomes a little problematic unless you can be 100% self-contained within that modular unit. So we got to take into account placement on the site, fencing, door access controls and security, and the path of travel between the main facility and the modular. So it can be, all the security concerns can be mitigated.
I just wouldn't want like a prison fence
Correct.
with the barbed wire pointing out that way.
Razor wire.
And it's, we can architecturally, we can mitigate all those things. The heartburn usually around modulars is the fact that they're not inexpensive, and it's money you don't really recoup, right? You don't get that $2 million back to put it towards bricks and mortar. It's gone.
And something that we have not discussed, which was a hot debate 20 plus years ago, was consolidation all the way around. And is that something that we should bring to the community to reevaluate? Because if we go this route, they may never be able to go back unless it grew tremendously and we had the land to do a high school. I guess my question would be, I know that changes commute times, which would probably have to adjust maybe even hours of operation just so it wasn't so early for students. But my question would be, we have both high schools. Could one be a middle school, one be a high school, and then we focus on 2 elementary schools, and then we are one in a community? And that would save us quite a bit of money, right? If we could fit all of our middle schoolers in one high school and all of our high schools in one high school, we do not have to worry about spending money to mitigate the students. They're all on the same campus. I understand that I'm asking for potentially a lot of, that is a lot of extra travel time. However, we're talking about long-term taxes, and the supervisors have definitely had plenty of feedback with that. So we're in a rural community, and I suggest people look at how far some school divisions travel. And I think in the long run, if we saved our money wisely, we could buy more buses that we needed to update, as opposed to have millions and millions and millions in buildings that it's taken forever to pay for.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah. No, it's a very great point. And Dr. Johnson, was that on our list of 19 at one point? I'll have to go back and look, but I am confident we examined that in a pros and cons manner, and I can go back and dig that up and
It was one of the last,
and look it up.
yeah. I believe it was one of the last options.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
we had,
Yep.
even when we met together the first time.
Well, there was a consolidated high school.
Consolidated high school, right.
Right.
The
But
problem
that's
was
very expensive. We don't have the land.
Right.
That's why I'm saying if we had to, as a community, come together, choose one high school for a middle school,
Yep.
and choose one high school as a high school.
Yeah.
That would have to be a community vote, but we do have what we need for both spaces, and we keep talking about using what we have. And both of these buildings are very nice. And then we could just focus our concentration on 2 elementary schools and focus our money there.
But what does that do for transportation of,
Oh, it's going to change it. It's definitely going to change transportation. I mean, look for, what was it, the South End, or, I'm sorry, I can't remember. One of them was like 19 minutes. One was 30 minutes.
what will change the drive time? But my concern is, are you going to have enough bus drivers?
That's what I'm saying. You would adjust the start date, the start time, excuse me.
Stagger start.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was going back to do some quick math. So to put both high schools into one high school, you're well over the capacity of the existing facility.
So you
But
would still
how
have to
long
build.
You would
would it-
still have to build something.
Even if we had to build something to that, and then at the decline rate, what are we looking at?
So that's a great question. I don't have all that in hand, but I can
We can put
certainly,
that in the
if you want to
parking
do a
lot.
parking lot
That's a
question,
parking lot question.
we'll run that analysis and even give you this graphic that helps you represent that.
You've done this a couple times. Sorry, Mr. Larber.
No, go on.
Using your experience and knowledge just for our comprehension, what kind of length of time are you looking at? 'Cause, I mean, obviously, the primo option, option 5 there, that's not going to happen in a year or two. That build out's going to take multiple years.
Yes.
Do you
Well,
have any estimate for those?
As with a caveat, it will depend on how you finance the projects, right? And how you're able to finance the projects. For example, your first move is likely going to be to put the additions on the high schools. The most economy you're going to get is if you do those simultaneously, or one right after the other. Because what we're going to need to do is tear down the existing Page Middle in order to build the new elementaries. So we've thought through this phasing a little bit and have stretched it out, but it all depends on what's your debt capacity, how are you going to get the funds. You might think about considering implementing this over like a 8 to 10 year period and see what that looks like. I was going to show you what my recommendations for next steps might be. Yes, sir.
On a phase-in, is there, and this is more of a question for the school board, but is there any necessity or proved necessity to have middle schools? The reason I say that is until 20 years ago, there was no middle school. We stopped at 7th grade, and it went to 8th grade in high school. Makes a lot of sense in that regard, in my opinion, because 8th grade has 8th grade basketball team, football, different things. A lot of those kids are even pulled up to JV or varsity, depending on their ability and all, on that level. And if they're in the same building, it's easier for them to operate under that, purview. With going back then seventh to, down to pre-kindergarten in the elementary schools, it's not a huge change. And I think sometimes we have to keep the political aspect in mind about how people are going to react. You start talking about closing down elementary schools, and your first thing is everybody starts not mine. And so it's maybe an easier phase in to get rid of the middle schools first, get some of that together, start having people see the wisdom in what we're doing, and work to what we're trying to do with this option 5.
Yeah.
And having a campus and all in the future. To me, that it's might be a little bit more politically doable. I mean, as far as a public understanding and going along with it, than if we try to say, okay, we're going to close Springfield. We're going to take care of that. Well, then you got the people in the northern end saying, hey, why are you taking closing Springfield? And it's going to be a harder sale, I think. And especially then when you drop $207 million on them, and they're going to say, no, we're not going to do that. We've run into that, and I've been through this now for 30 years. And it's been that type of reaction from the public. I mean, you've got to take and make sure that it makes sense to them and that they can see where you're going with it. That's just my humble opinion.
Well, to that point, you'd want 7th and 8th to also be there together because it gives them the opportunity to have algebra and all those higher ed classes that you're sharing with the high school already with the teacher. And they don't have to move. They already have a class. And the teacher can move from one side of the building to the other to go teach algebra or geometry that's being offered to a 7th or 8th grade class.
Prior to the middle school, the 7th grade was in elementary school.
It was in elementary, and they did not have that opportunity.
They did
to
not
take
have that
classes.
opportunity other than, at that point. That's true. So, I mean, that's a question for y'all to answer and to deal with. How you perceive that as far as it, is that educational benefit made a difference in grades and that type of thing, and scores and all? Has that made a difference? And so that's just the things that we've got to think about. And when we start rolling through all these other figures and how much it's going to be to do this and do that to each building and all, people's eyes are going to glaze over on that. We've got to get something that's more to the core of what we need to deal with and try to think about how we can move forward. Because I want to see this happen. I'd like to see us move ahead. But if we start to bite off too much of the elephant, we're not going to go anywhere.
What sounds like, so just hearing kind of what you're saying, what everyone's sort of getting around to. So it sounds like, I mean, obviously from your all's perspective, I think from all of our perspectives, that option 5, like, I don't know who referred to it as the primo option, but I like that term. And it sounds like that's the main goal. It sounds like the more kind of in the weeds portion is to figure out how we phase that in a responsible way. I mean, option 4, $4 million a year. I mean, we can throw that off. Option 2A, to me, it doesn't make sense to say, hey, let's do a temporary option that will still cost a significant amount of money. It sounds like it won't necessarily hinder our main goal, but it will just increase costs of an already costly finish line. And then the only question I have too, so like with the middle schools, I know the first time that we did the joint meeting, one of the concerns is like that there's not a lot of like the classrooms and things aren't up to the
Standard.
What was it?
Standard size.
The standard sizes, right? And
Educational adequacy.
Educational adequacy for the natural lighting, the classroom sizes. I know to your concerns about like the stairs, as someone who tripped in that now middle school many times. So I guess to me, it seems like, and again, I go back to what we're trying to do is create something. I haven't seen any option or discussed anything that says, hey, this is going to cost a significant amount of money. But I guess my main priority would be to build something or to have something that will last. I mean, after most of us have
50 years.
certainly
Well,
gone.
option 5 is the 50-year plan.
Right.
But if this county does what it's done already, like Shenandoah Elementary is hitting almost 100.
Sure.
So if you're getting double use out of it for that long, and this community probably will do that, and if they built and designed that well, and if you get that longevity out of it, then
Right.
the price point comes down significantly.
I agree with you on that. And so I guess my thoughts would be to see what we would have to do to work through phase 5 in a way, because unless Mr. Latterback brought his checkbook, I don't know if he has $270 million laying around. I mean, I know that's
I
going
don't
to be.
think there's any taxpayer out there that's going to be doing that. So that's a problem.
Right. So I think, again, looking at how we phase that in a way that doesn't break the back of the taxpayer, but that puts that as our ultimate goal. I mean, realistically.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there is a scenario, for example, again, keeping in mind, you're working towards option 5. You're working towards that 50-year plan. Obviously, you can't implement a 50-year, $207 million plan in 5 years. That's just not going to happen, right? We know this. But if you don't lose sight of that, maybe you take off the first bite of that elephant. And for example, maybe the first bite of that elephant is doing the additions at both the high schools. That's a more manageable number, right? That's something that may be manageable in the first 5 years. But then you have to remember that while you're doing that, you're still maintaining 4 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. So you've got to do at least the first 5 years of deferred maintenance. Now, the numbers that you saw here, for example, these are deferred maintenance numbers. Those are the 20 years. The first 5 years, and I don't know about parts, so the first 5 years, that number may be more like 6 million or 4 million. I don't know. But maybe the analysis is, give us the first 5 years of deferred maintenance to maintain the schools we have, because we've got to address them, right? We have to address them because they're not going to. But then go ahead and look at the budget for the middle school district, or the 7th, 8th grade. I could say it was really a 7th, 8th grade edition. So maybe that's an option to think about. When you think about how the state is question, I think state is a $270 million project. That may be more than you have to think about it first.
Well, maybe you can phase it to where it doesn't cost you $207 million too.
So
I mean, that's the thing you need to think about in terms of that.
Mr. Latterback, what you're kind of looking at would be to do the additions to the high schools to get 7th and 8th grade there, move 6th grade back to the elementary schools and shut the 2 middle schools on a 5-year plan kind of.
If you close the 2 middle schools, you're getting rid of some administrative support. You're moving the teachers still with the classes to the particular school that they would go into, either high school or elementary, one or the other.
But you can't necessarily do that because one of the elementary schools is already over capacity.
And 100 years old.
Yes.
Well, that comes down to another point, which also becomes a ticklish issue with people, and that is changing your boundaries on your schools to where they will balance out more to what the enrollment is for the schools.
That would be an option.
Or you could adjust.
That hasn't been adjusted for a long time, and you've got situations like that where we've got options without spending a lot of money. And granted, we're going to have to do some things with the schools anyway. But let's try to move forward in a way that's not going to break the bank and cause everybody to suddenly throw up their hands and say, no, we're not going to do anything. I'd rather not be at that point.
Shift some of them from that Luray Elementary School, say, towards Springfield, that's under 40%.
Some of them at Luray Elementary are already going to Springfield, but maybe not enough of them, because I see their parents picking them up and taking them heading back to Luray. So, I mean, I know that's where they're going, because I've sat there.
Luray to Springfield.
What's that?
There's a good number of students that go from Luray to Springfield.
Yeah, I know, because I've stopped in the traffic there and watched them come out of the parking lot after they picked up their kids and head south.
So then we would still, are you proposing then to still continue to maintain the 4 elementary schools with declining occupancy?
No, they wouldn't have the declining occupancy if you shift the boundaries and you make sure that you got the proper grades in that school. You should be having 7th and 6th now back to elementary instead of setting up, in the middle school. But you'd eliminate the middle school, which are also Luray High School, or Luray Middle School, which is a cost to you as well, isn't it?
Just limiting
to maintain. And it's an older facility, probably the oldest facility that we have.
Second oldest.
That's the plan already.
Second oldest.
Second oldest.
But we would still have to take care of the 4 ancient elementary schools.
We're going to have to take care of those 4 elementary schools, in my opinion, until this project can come together anyway. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that.
So, I mean, you just as well fully occupy those buildings while you're trying to do that, make that transition. They're not fully occupied now.
Okay.
So what? One question I had, and I don't know that it's a model that we talked about, and it may not be a popular model nowadays, but it was the model when I went to school. Is we were pre-K through 12 all in one school. what would an option like that potentially look like here in the county where you could close all elementaries, close both middle schools, close both high schools and have one school?
Ooh, that means you have to have a new cafeteria in the new building to accommodate the extra. So you're physically building another building in the building that you already have. Because you need cafeteria, you need probably 2 gyms.
You need an elementary and a high school gym.
Yeah, so you're at, to
Same
me, that
cafeteria.
would add more because you're adding another cafeteria, you're adding some other things that you necessarily can't always share. You can't get the full school in here.
You're going from
If
8
you're having
schools to 1.
Yeah, but you can't fit 1,200 students in here when you have an assembly.
Right, you'd have to expand.
How you going to expand this?
That wasn't one of our options.
Right.
I don't know if we could maybe go back and put that in the parking lot as well, but that really, we got down to 3 options. And there are steps and intermediate steps that could be made. But I think this is more of an informational thing. It's not a time to make a decision, but what I would like to focus on is just everybody asking questions of our expert. If there's any other questions on that,
Can you
he can
help,
answer for us. Go ahead.
can you help me find that 100, I think you said 108% if we move 8th grade up to the high schools?
Yes. And
Because if our elementary schools are, there's space there that we could shift people, and there's space here that we could shift people.
There isn't space at the elementaries to shift.
Some, right? We're talking about Springfield's under.
Yeah, you can, but you have to
Capacity.
change the boundaries. That's where Mr.
Well,
Lauterbach is
that
getting.
almost sounds like something we need to do no matter what, just based on.
Just population shifts, you almost need to
Yeah,
do that.
we haven't
And it
done
should
it
be
for a
done
while.
more frequently anyway, based on the population shifts.
Yeah, so I mean that's an option, but that's what you're going to have to do if you're going to use
Right.
that as a thinking.
Exactly.
Because right now, yeah, you have all this extra room at Springfield, but you don't necessarily at Stanley and at Shenandoah.
Correct.
So you have to move the boundaries to spread those kids back out
Right.
and
Is-
get them in a school that has the capacity to serve.
Is there an option on the table right now that does not rewrite boundaries? So either way, I believe we're rewriting boundaries.
No, the ones that he has shown keeps the boundaries as the high school. Didn't you say that before?
in the home run option keeps the boundaries the same so that they're consistent from kindergarten to 12th grade. They're staying within that boundary. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
We have analyzed adjusting your boundaries regardless, especially at the elementary school level, to balance the enrollment because you have 2 that are well over capacity and 2 that are well under. So that would be something that you all should consider doing regardless of additions, renovations, expansions to right size your elementary schools.
Okay. And I'm sorry, did you find that?
I'm
grade?
still, I'm looking. I don't
That's
know if it's
okay.
in this presentation or the previous one I gave, but I can, if you want to I'll parking lot that one
yep.
and give it to you.
Got a couple more for you.
Yes.
Does Grove Hill come into this discussion at any point in time?
It's a great question. We have considered options about what to do with Grove Hill. We've had plenty of discussions about it. It was part of that wide net approach. And throughout that process, we kept coming back to, honestly, the Grove Hill at some point is no longer going to serve a purpose for the school system.
Does Grove Hill offer less ongoing operational costs than Shenandoah for an elementary school?
I don't think so, but if you want a parking lot that way, we can do an analysis and see.
That's just an open question because that Shenandoah is obviously one of our oldest buildings.
Yeah, that's a great question. And can we add capacity to that parking lot? Not just running maintenance, but capacity
Yes.
space.
Great point. Just an observation that I've had in looking at this. I think we all need to go into it eyes wide open that our 2 newest buildings, our high schools, have the high, I won't know the highest because I'm going off memory, but to the higher end of our operational costs in terms of CIP plans. I think we'd be foolish to think we're going to build new schools and not see that trend continue. So we're looking at reducing operational expenses at some facilities that, while they're old, I mean, operational CIP expenses in the grand scheme of things are probably less than the high school. Just based on observations, because we've had a lot of large expenses around HVAC, boilers and some equipment. So newer things cost more money to maintain in general.
Well, and the one thing to keep in mind too is that if the systems aren't present, you don't have to really maintain them. So the elementary
right.
schools are missing quite a bit of infrastructure that you're not having to maintain. That's one reason why, like that energy analysis we did at the previous step, that's why those numbers looked a little skewed, because we're like, why is that? And we're like, oh yeah, the high schools have an air conditioner and they're basically operational 12 months out of the year. So that's why those costs are so much bigger.
Setting
that'll
student
make
comfort to the side, which is obviously a very large, important conversation. Financially, we have to be open-minded to know that the new shiny star is going to be expensive to maintain versus equipment that we don't have in place in an older school. So I guess something for all of us just to be aware of in terms of our ongoing expenses.
But isn't that the 1.9 operating cost that you figured out?
All of that, yeah, is factored into that spreadsheet there.
I won't say disappointing, but it's concerning to see what we're spending in repair costs in our two new high schools for like HVAC. It doesn't seem comparatively to some of the older buildings. Just an observation. And then my third question is, any part of this looked at the value of the existing facilities that we could potentially close? I mean, obviously there's things we could do from it from a county perspective.
Yeah.
But assuming that we no longer need the asset, is there a value there that could offset, if we sold it or leased it or whatever, that offset some of these other expenses?
Absolutely. I think that would be the goal of this whole group, would be to find uses for those facilities that benefit the community, whether it's at the civic level, perhaps a private investor may be interested in converting one or two. For example, I said earlier, Shenandoah, beautiful auditorium, that could easily be a civic function. That could be a revenue generator. Page Middle. Page Middle has a great property. There's lots of front area there around the building to be used. It's centrally located. Easily become a community center, a rec center. It could be converted to a lot of other functions. But I would say that would be part of the next recommendation.
I was going to say real quick, we have a lot of comments about affordable housing and people looking for that. Are any of those buildings, do they lend themselves to being converted
That
into
has been
housing?
done
I've seen
many
other
times.
communities that have taken them and put them into apartment complexes and things like that.
Absolutely. That has been done many times, conversion of elementary schools to small, low income housing or affordable housing. Some of the more urban schools are often converted to loft apartments that are actually very nice and usually fill up pretty quickly. So those can be done. It's not something necessarily that you want to do at a county level, right? That's that private investor approach that you want to evaluate to say, hey, can this developer come in and invest in this property for that?
Have you seen that done in other localities?
I have. Example, Montgomery County, Blacksburg area, they converted a developer came in and developed the middle elementary school into private use. So yeah, it happens quite a bit.
Can you get us some information on that?
Yeah, be glad
you
to.
can get us some contact
Yeah.
or something.
We can pull together quite a bit of examples on that. I
That'd be
believe. If
great.
you want to put that on my parking lot list, I'll see if I can dig into that some for you.
This is growing.
It would help to kind of have an understanding of what that asset may be worth. Obviously, not necessarily your specialty, but you would have you would have more knowledge than I do.
Well,
of what it could
part
be.
of next steps, you may want to. I'm sure there are plenty of them in the area that would be interested. But have a discussion with a commercial real estate broker and say, hey, if we were going to convert one of these schools or suggest it be converted, what would that value be? They could certainly help you with that.
Yeah. You know, if you get that handle on that, right, you know how much you got.
The comment, and it came up during the school board specific meeting before this section, but we always point out the expensive high school running costs that you brought up. I think it would be advantageous for us to find a way to get 8 in here sooner based on the capacity. I know, and there's some data you've got that is in the parking lot that we'll get, but I think with our reducing headcount in students, it may be something to revisit, because if we're paying the most here, we need to make sure we're using it to our capacity.
Max out the capacity.
Yes.
That's right.
I have a question for you, sir. So in the other localities and the other projects that you've put forward, I'm sure that, with a similar list of options for them to choose from, what has been your experience in seeing why certain communities or why the communities have chosen to go with a new construction? I mean, because it's expensive everywhere, obviously, so they ended up moving towards that option. What's your experience with why they chose to go that way?
That's a really tough question. I think a lot of the why, if you can remove, and I know it's so hard. I know it's so, especially in rural areas, to remove the sentiment from this approach.
Sure.
I understand that. It's easy for me to say things like that because I'm not living in this community, right? But even if this were happening in my community, and if I were to see an outside source or even someone locally present a slide like this to me,
yeah,
and I'm able to remove the sentiment, and I say, what are my tax dollars really paying for? I can remove myself from that sentiment pretty easily. I think long-term investment costs are important. I think investing in your kids is the most important thing you can do as a community. I wouldn't be a designer of K-12 educational facilities if I didn't believe that wholeheartedly. It is the number one thing you can invest in for your community, for its long-term viability. Invest in your facilities, support the maximum education they can achieve in Page County. That's what makes a decision nearly every time, is putting the kids first.
Have you been to a place where they built, like for us, we have a fairly new high school. It's going to then maybe be added on for partial middle school and then two new elementaries. Have you seen that community grow? In other words, especially if the schools are academically inclined and new facilities, have you seen a community grow in population with that?
So as much as I wish my architecture made that kind of profound impact in how people felt about where they live, I don't think so.
Okay.
Unfortunately, school design doesn't influence higher birth rates. It just doesn't.
Right.
Now, what I do believe is that it has an influence on choosing where they might live.
Right.
It may not increase significantly without other pieces to that. Right. You can have amazing schools, but if people have to drive 90 minutes for a decent paying wage, they're probably not going to live there for the decent school. Right. So you have to have the other pieces there
along with it.
However, schools are the center of communities. They are the icons for the communities. It's where people gather and do things. They're critical to that whole equation, but they're only one piece of the equation.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow up on Mr. Lauterbach's question. So if we did something like 2A as a step and consolidated some elementary schools, then moving towards the prime option, I guess, is there anything specific that says that has to be pre-K through 6, or could it be pre-K through 7 and then have your high schools adopt the 8th grade? I mean, obviously there's some trade-offs there.
I would say that any option you see here at this level is fluid, right? It can change as we move through the process if we need to. I think it could be implemented in such that, hey, in 3 years, this worked pretty well. We're ready for the next step, but we need to make an adjustment to that step. You would want that design team to be able to look at that time. So yes, I would say there's nothing that would say we're starting this in 2027 and we can't vary paths for the next 10 years. This is it. We're committed. There's nothing in that approach that says you got to do this. The one thing that you wouldn't want to go is go backwards.
Right. Well, I guess we've all kind of, well, not all of us, obviously we're not in agreement exactly yet, but there seems to be a lot of kind of discussion about the middle schools. I mean, most of what we've looked at pretty much gets rid of Page Middle School. We've all kind of concluded that Luray Middle School is probably not ideal in terms of age, multiple floors, and that kind of thought. So kind kind of back to Mr. Lauterbach's suggestion about elementary schools and high schools, I guess that's kind of fitting that narrative of the middle schools really don't make sense for us and what we're looking at long term.
And really, even if you do additions at the high schools, we're not even calling them middle schools. Really, we're calling them adding 7th and 8th grade to the high schools.
Because the name doesn't change.
Right. But you still want, there's still going to be community sentiment about how to keep ages appropriately separated. So that's one reason the additions are still pretty important to that approach.
But if they did a consolidated approach, we would no longer need an additional gym, and we would not have to worry about keeping ages separated.
And by the consolidated approach, you mean one high school, one middle school?
Correct.
But then again, you're over capacity, so you're going to have to build on.
Well, you're going to have to do that anyways, but you would still spend less because we wouldn't need additional gym. There's just a lot of
Well,
things.
you're assuming you wouldn't spend more.
You're assuming, that's correct. But it would also be very nice to have all of our high school teachers under one roof, all of our middle school
yeah,
teachers.
you can offer more
Absolutely,
content.
and we would.
More classes, more academics.
That would help as far as searching for staff as well. I just think that it's not idea, and every single person in the community would have to sacrifice at some point for travel, however you chose it. But I think in the long run, it would cost us less money.
Well, I think 20 years ago when these buildings were concept and it should have been done then.
And that's why I'm bringing it up, because and that's why I say I think that the community would need to weigh in on this, because I have stood in lines for football games just this past year and overheard people saying we should have been consolidated. And I just feel like that opportunity should not be taken from the community. They will have to make a sacrifice as far as commute, whether they're, a commute to a high school or a commute to a middle school, but the north end and the south end take turns. So we're all going to be in the same boat as far as at some point somebody has to commute. And when you live in a rural community and we're already strapped and we don't want to put our supervisors in a position to increase taxes to an extent, use what we have. We keep talking about it, and I think that we should really explore that.
Well, one thing you have to look at is the commute time on a bus from
right.
Springfield to the middle school.
I
Pages
challenge you
used
at
as
the
middle-
VSBA, if they have another electric bus scenario. I think it was Highland County that has huge, some of these kids are on, for an hour at a time. They got an electric van and the commute times have decreased tremendously. If we're doing cost savings on buildings, then we can invest in those types of things.
in the transportation. to get them.
Absolutely.
But we have to be mindful of what the regulations of DOE says for
They build
the
those
student.
appropriately. So if they offer that at the VSBA, one of the breakout sessions, I'll point that to you. It's very interesting. But that would help us in the long run for, because obviously it's a lot of territory to cover for commutes.
Well, the one thing I'll throw in with commute is talking about time, not distance so much, because you
Correct.
could be in the city and commute the same amount of time on the bus
Go left.
in a shorter distance.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we got to look at that in perspective as well. That shouldn't be our excuse. Yeah, we're a big county, but so is Shenandoah, so is Rockingham, so is Rappahannock, and so is Bath.
But Shenandoah
So
County
you go to
doesn't
those
have
places, they have to
one
really be on
middle
that.
school that's on one end of the county that they have to bus from the other end of the county up to it. So we just have to be mindful of those students sitting on those buses and how long they're going to take them to get to school and then back home. And we have to be in compliance with the regulations from DOE that says how long a student can be on a bus.
Then my only question, so, okay, if you had the one high school, the one middle school, would you then propose keeping the elementary schools
No. So
and putting them in the middle schools?
look, at a perfect world, I'd propose one elementary school, and it would be center of the county. So then we're only dealing with 4 buildings. Okay, I know that people aren't going to love that. I'm on board with the 2 elementary schools. I like that as well. But in a perfect world, if we are trying to be cost effective and efficient, it's spread out. It's spread out. But if we can build one elementary school in the center of the county, then we have one high school and we have one middle school. Then we have our tech center. We've only got 4 buildings to maintain.
Yes, but the cost savings is still going to not be that great of significance because you're looking at square foot. So when you're building if you're combining 4 elementaries down to 1.
You're right. The footprint's larger.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And you're going to have a larger cafeteria, a larger kitchen, a larger 2 gyms, and
So is it cheaper to build 1 or 2? I mean, that would be the question. That's not something that I have an answer for.
Is that a parking lot item we can ask our
you
dear
can put
friend
anything in
here
the
for
parking
some
lot.
data?
You can put anything in the parking lot.
It might get left in the parking lot, but you
Yeah,
can put it. I'm just kidding.
Well, folks, we're at
look at
9:05.
whatever. One thing to keep in mind: one elementary school would be 1,700 elementary school kids.
that's too big.
Jeez.
That's too big.
Well, then we could still do the 2 new elementary schools and then utilize our high schools and, maybe a little bit more economical.
So I'm not running a design workshop right now, but I'm very much inspired to ask a bit of a rhetorical question in listening to this group, because this is the first time we've really got to talk about some of these things together. I've asked this of the school leadership and all the stakeholders, but if you put the money aside, you put transportation aside, at the end of the day, at the end of 20 years, when most of us are gone, what is it that you want to have as the greatest contribution to Page County Public Schools? What are the goals you want to achieve? Think about that long term and how that might impact this plan. I think that can be influential in some of your thinking. For example, and again, I'm pulling this out of left field, so don't hold me to any of this, but this is just to help to inspire some thought. One thing that we haven't really addressed, and what brought this to my mind was you brought up Page County Tech Center. How important is CTE to Page County schools for the next 20 to 50 years?
Extremely.
Yes.
Critical.
Absolutely, yes.
And again, these are rhetorical questions. Think about them.
Critical.
But is that something that needs to be considered in a 20-year plan? When we think about where most of your kids are going upon graduation and why communities are dying, is because they're graduating high school, they're leaving their lovely communities, and they're not coming back. So think about that and how it impacts some of your thinking for your planning moving forward. I think that some of these plans actually take that into account. They begin to consider things like that. But again, you have to remove a few things. You got to remove sentiment. You got to remove thinking of a $207 million sticker shock. While those are very important and practical, right? You can have a wonderful wish list, but the one thing that can't be on it is your budget. Can't be wishing for a budget. It's got to be there or it's not. So think about that long term. What are the decisions we make now? Again, going back to the theme that I opened with. The decisions you make now that contribute to a long-term solution.
But I mean, I certainly don't speak for this entire group, but I think the one thing that unites us and we can all agree on, we want to do what's best for the education of our youth. I mean, that's why we're all here. I guess magically, if there was one scenario that said, hey, you do this and you're guaranteed the best education of that student, we'd be all like, well, that's where we got to get. How do we do it? But I guess that's why we're all struggling, is trying to see how these different options impact the end goal of that student and their success. And to your point, deciding maybe to stay in Page County for the rest of their life or come back or whatever. So I guess if you had that, star on one of these options, it would make this option a whole lot easier.
Well, this is not a decision for RMM or the design team to make, but I know where my heart would be. I think I opened the previous meeting by saying that I wasn't overly familiar with Page County when we first started down this road now a couple years ago. But when I dropped over the mountain, I said, holy cow, this place is unbelievable. How did I not know this was here? I think that keeps people here. That's that beauty, the everything that this county has to offer is amazing. One of the most simple things that you can do to influence the education is be able to have the highest and best teachers you can attract. One of the ways you do that is by having the best facilities that you can build. So you want to impact kids long term, you have great teachers. You have great teachers because you have something to attract them here. Besides its physical beauty, right? It's a gorgeous place, but they got to want to come here and teach. So something to think about.
Well, I think it says something for our administration, our school board as well,
Absolutely.
because we have good retention, or we do now. So congratulations to them. I think that's a big part of that as well.
Absolutely. And there's listen, I said this very first time we met. We've been in every school in your system multiple times. There is tremendous pride taken in each and every one of those facilities. Those folks take care of those buildings. They are tireless and they are spotless when you walk in them. They're well maintained. There's no doubt about that. Unfortunately, taking care of them, making sure they're clean doesn't address the fact that their systems are aged out and failing, and you're just facing the need to replace them. So do we want to talk about next steps? There's been a lot of questions. I'm happy to keep going if you guys would like.
Yeah, I think we better let him work on some of the things in
Yeah,
the
we
parking
got
lot.
that parking lot full. So
Yep.
we'll work on some of those things. So I think our last
What we need back?
bit of it is board member comments. And if the school board's okay, I'll open it up to our board supervisor visitors as well, if that's okay. And we'll start down there with Mr. Thomas.
Yeah. So I just want to thank the Board of Supervisors for being here and just the partnership that we've formed here over the last several months. Some of them have been challenging, but we've overcome it together. So just thank you guys for the support. To the community, I just want to wish everybody, I hope that everybody's enjoying their summers. I hope that they're making memories that they're never going to forget. And I look forward to seeing what we're going to be able to do here in the upcoming school year. And that's all I've got.
For me, no matter what option we go with, we have to look at it as what's in the best interest of our students first, and then the staff that we maintain. I know I've worked in some questionable buildings. There's different things that got me to stay. There's different things that got me to leave. But if I was placed in a building like this, very nice, I would be hesitant to leave. I don't think people would come here always for the money, because I know our pay scale is a little bit lower. But if you're coming here to new updated facilities, that means a lot. And to show you what I mean is, one of the schools that I worked at, Magruder Early Childhood Center and Magruder Primary, which is downtown Newport News, down by the shipyard, they have tore that building down and built a new building. I love my time in that building, but it's much like Shenandoah Elementary School. Would I go back and teach in that new building, given where it is in that community? Hands down, 100%. Knowing that it's also a new building. Would I do it before it was a new building? And maybe would be hesitant because the building had some issues. Now, given the fact that Newport News does pay a lot better, that might be a factor as well. But I think to attract the top teachers, as you spoke about, having newer facilities, better accommodations for them and for the students, I think is the way that we need to look at it and treat it with the community. I think closing some schools, it hurts my heart to close some of the community schools. But knowing what our students will gain by that, moving into new facilities, better facilities, I think will be better. I think we'll attract better teachers. I think our SOL scores will go up. The educational level will be enhanced, and we'll be the shining star in the region. That's just my thought. That is also my hope.
Well, I guess with that, I mean, the report prepared by RRMM has been tremendous information. I know some of it is a lot of financial that shocks a lot of people, and that's going to be the hardest part to try to sell to the citizens of the community, especially after this past budget year and all that. Phew, that was rough. But I think the facts on paper have been prepared by somebody that has no emotional connection to the community, which sometimes is better to look at long-term investment in the county than it is emotional attachment. We all know, everybody on the board throughout the school system and board of supervisors want to spend the money the most wisely that we can, even if it does mean closing schools and building new facilities long term. So I think we've done a great job on the information that they presented. It's just up to us as the board in general to pick the correct option and try to persuade the citizens of the county that that's the right direction to go. So with that being said, I'll let somebody else.
So I actually would like to start with another parking lot item since we're getting into closing. So this actually might be an internal one, but I'd like us to find the age of each building. I do think Mr. Breeden had a good point that we don't just get 50 years out of our buildings. We consistently get even close to 100 and double. So I think that'll help us as we determine and compare these decisions for that long-term plan. I know it's been mentioned, but appreciate you guys as the Board of Supervisors coming out today. It's a very big undertaking, and I'm glad we're doing it as a joint effort. That's what the county deserves. So I appreciate you all being here. It's a hard comment to make because we certainly aren't, our money is not going to bad places, but we do want to be cautious to not throw good money after bad. So as we're making these decisions, we do want to look at how the money is being spent long term. Off to you.
Well, again, I would actually like to thank the school board. Thank you guys for inviting us, for allowing us to be here. I feel like like everyone said, and we have a good relationship. We're having good discussions. I think for me, the big thing is we have to have the courage to make a decision. We have to take that moment, and none of the decisions that we make as a board of supervisors or school board are easy. We don't get the easy decisions. So we have to have the courage to make a hard decision, and I think our kids deserve to have the same opportunities as anyone, anywhere in the United States, period. I had a 12th grade English teacher actually in the new Page County High School building once say that just because you're from a small place doesn't mean you have a small mind. And that really stuck with me. Personally, I feel like we've discussed everything back and forth. We've kind of suggested different ways of getting to the same place. So for me, I guess the ultimate parking lot item is how do we get to option 5 in a way that's responsible and feasible? And I think part of that, relies on you all, but I think it's also partially on us to think of ways to offset those costs and to not put the burden exclusively on the taxpayers' back. And the last thing, I don't want to see us choose an option that is kicking the can down the road or put some more duct tape. And many of my things that I own personally are held together by duct tape, and it's a great product, don't get me wrong. But I don't want to see us get into a position where we're trying to hold things together with hope and dreams and duct tape, only to find ourselves in a position 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, saying, I wish we would have done this back then. I wish the prior boards would have had that courage to make the right decision. So with all that, I think it's a lot to think about. I appreciate all the information. Turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for rounding out a good team working on this issue. We have two customers to please, our students and our taxpayers. And I pray we have the best solution to serve them both. Alan?
Okay. Well, I really want to say thank you very much to the school board members. Appreciate your comments and the insight now. Going through some of these things and figuring out what we're going to do. We've got a lot of things on the parking lot. I hope you've got the spaces marked well. But I think this is a healthy discussion because it's something that has maybe enlightened you a little bit more about the direction we want to try to move. And I think getting us phased in, I keep saying that, but I think that's a key element to trying to do this thing right. I think it's something that the people got to see that there is a direction that we're heading and it makes sense and they could get behind us. There's too often that things have gotten out in the media and out in the public that is misconstrued, and then the first thing you know, they're running with it, and we got entirely different results from what we even were talking about. So that's what we got to try to stay focused on. We want to make sure that the public is informed from us, not from somebody else. And I really, again, I can't say enough how much I appreciate working with this school board, because it's healthy and refreshing to see the close-knit arrangements we've had. We've talked, and I mean, hashed things out. We always haven't agreed, but at least we have been able to work through some things that I think have been very positive. And so I'm proud to be a member of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for handling all of our questions and the parking lot questions and being patient with us. We do appreciate the time that you guys have put into this. And we appreciate the administration and the time that you all have dedicated to this. Hours. But thank you for the supervisors. I do appreciate the working relationship that we have with you all. This is how we show the community how we work together, because this is our community. These are our tax dollars, and we represent the community. We want to hear from you all, and there's pressure to make sure that our students and our taxpayers are served to the very best of our abilities. The greatest thing that I hear tonight is that we want to do something. We are going to do something, and we've just got to figure that out. And that's great. We agree. We agree that there's an issue. And as far as our older buildings that have served us so well in this community, but we also have